All right, boys and girls, it's that time again. We're here for the Split Peak Soup podcast. I'm your host, Neil Carney, and I'm here with a very special guest, a talented surfer, entrepreneur, and just amazing person, my friend Tyler Fox. Tyler, how you doing today?
Doing great.
Yeah.
Thanks, buddy. It's good to be here.
Totally. It's great to have you on. And you're a huge kind of figure here in Santa Cruz in the surfing world. Personally, growing up, I think I met you when I was probably like 13 or 14. You grew up in Aptos, and I made a pretty cool local pack of Southside surfing buddies like Nick Hanna and Buck Shelton. I was sponsored by Freeline, and they had like a huge Aptos contingency going, and I think that was how I was exposed to you. And just off the bat, I was just blown away at your lightning quick surfing prowess. And yeah, just being a really nice and humble and pleasant person to be around.
Cool.
Yeah, and so it's been great to see you do your thing all these years. And you created a surf magazine, Santa Cruz Waves. You've been really involved in some entrepreneurial type endeavors over the years. Where would you say you're at right now with your life, Tyler?
Well, thanks for that introduction, Neil. Appreciate it. And right back at you, being a great person in the community and amazing writer. And we can get into our Japan trip later. But
yeah, yeah.
Right now, for me, I am a young 44 years old. Had knee surgery about 4 months ago now by Dr. Mossy. A lot of the big wave surfers and athletes have gotten their knees or bodies fixed by Mossy. He's a pro, but so that went good, and I'm on recovering, probably at about 90% of my peak performance. So that's taken some patience. I haven't really gotten injured or had surgery for a long time. Last time I had a knee surgery was in high school, so it's definitely kind of makes you realize like what a good working body, no broken bones or injuries is pretty nice when you're just yeah, other than that, the injury, still living in our tiny house, off-grid tiny house up in the Soquel Hills, and working as the marketing director for Sandbar Solar and Electric on the west side. So that kind of wraps it up.
Beautiful. And just touching on the knee injury, what happened?
Yeah, I think it was just cumulative wear and tear over the years, tweaking and snowboarding and surfing, etc. So it finally caught up with me and started to get quite a bit of pain, and it just wasn't going away. So I knew something was wrong and got an MRI, and yeah, sure enough, saw a tear in the meniscus. So they trimmed it out, saved a lot of the meniscus, and I'm back at it. So
awesome. And you actually went on a surf trip post knee surgery.
yeah.
How did that go?
Yeah, good. It was a little dicey because it was probably only 2.5 months after the surgery. So, but with this type of injury, it was not a repair. So there weren't any sutures in the meniscus. It was just a trim out of the tear. So, aside from some residual swelling, there wasn't a lot that could really get re-injured. Mm-hmm. It's not like the sutures could pull out or something. So, I got approval from my PT and the doc, and we're like, yeah, you can surf. You're not going to surf your best, or I wouldn't try any massive errors or things like that, but you can get out there. And yeah, I brought a brace and wore these like leggings, these what are they? The compression leggings over a knee brace.
Okay.
And that kind of just held my knee together. I felt a little more stable, so I used that while I was surfing.
Yeah.
Felt decent. So
And you were in Nicaragua.
Nicaragua,
Sick.
north of Nicaragua.
Epic. And what would you describe the wave quality as during your trip?
Yeah, the waves during our trip specifically were fun. They were, it got head high, little overhead, straight offshore, really hollow peaks. And the spot is called the Boom in northern Nicaragua. That's kind of the beach break. And yeah, it's like a mini Puerto Escondido, like it doesn't really get too big, but it's heavy and it's really hollow, really thick, breaks a lot of boards. And you can get thoroughly tubed. It's really fun.
Yeah. And so were there any moments where you're like crouching pig dog and go, ooh, like ooh, little bites anywhere with pain?
Yeah, good question. For whatever reason, going backside, I was kind of in that pig dog position. All my weight was on my front foot. So it was actually going front side, that I felt it more in my knee, like specifically like doing bottom turns or top turns, when you're just putting all your pressure on that back leg. That's when I was like, that feels pretty tender, pretty weak,
Yeah.
So, but other than that, I mean, you kind of go there just to get tubes, not really rip. So I was fine just throwing a pig dog stall and just looking for the tube. So
Yeah. And did you go with some people?
yeah, I went with my good buddy Jeff DeRosa.
Okay.
Who he's one of my partners in the property down there. We own a little bit of property down there, and we've been going down there for 15 years or so now. So it was great to get him back down there. He hadn't been down there for a number of years. So
Okay. And just going back to the, growing up in Aptos thing, something that really struck me these days is that I know that there's surfers that live in Aptos, but it just feels like there's been like a shift, like culturally, as far as that like contingent goes. I don't know what it is, but have you noticed that the kind of the core surfing kind of tribal aspect of Aptos surfers has changed a little bit over the years?
well, we have Bud Freitas now riding his e-bike up and down the beach.
Sick, nice.
So no, I love Bud, but it's like, I think every 5 or 10 years you kind of have a changing of the guard. Just like out at the point or the lane, it's like a new crop of youngsters that are out there all the time, and maybe some of the older, crew is surfing less and less. But yeah, I'm not too familiar. Like I'm not surfing down there all the time.
Right.
But just the other day I was surfing with my high school buddies at a peak by ourselves. So, I think a lot has changed, but a lot of things have kind of stayed the same. So
Yeah, I think one of the things, unfortunately, that young man, Ben Kelly, was hit by a shark there.
yeah,
Maybe in my own personal kind of worldview, it just seemed like I'm less inclined to like dip my toes into waters where that kind of stuff has happened. So maybe that has a little bit to do with it. But yeah,
could.
as you mentioned, it's like these waves, they're kind of unpredictable. And
Yeah.
but I mean, ahead of you, you had like guys like, especially like Peter Mel. He just brought this whole kind of culture around him and Aptos, and they represented like super well. Who are some of the guys who were like inspiring for you to watch surf growing up in Aptos?
Yeah. Good question. This is a nice jogs the memory bank here, but growing up, Brian Shelton, little older than me, ton of attitude, surfed amazing. Also a goofy foot. I tried to kind of keep up with his surfing, and Charlie Parker, another close childhood friend. We were always kind of battling it out. Charlie then. There's a lot of good guys. Bibis, Eric Davis. Surfed amazing. Obviously, Pete. Um,
What about Jerry Murphy? I see a little bit of
Jerry
him in your
Murphy.
surfing.
That's another good one. Jerry Murphy. So yeah, a lot of Mike Santella, great style, So there are so many underground amazing surfers down there that could surf. You just never see them, But like you put them out at a good point break or in quality waves, and they're gonna surf as good as anybody's.
And one thing I think about like surfing beach breaks, I know that like Gowie and Rhodey and all those guys would like, religiously go down to Aptos to like do mock heats and stuff, and
Yep.
just kind of utilize that beach break setup, to kind of mimic the surf that might be, what they found in their heats for the WQS and stuff like that. And so maybe one thing that would hamstring a surfer who grows up on like a point like myself is like you have these consistent point break waves that are like well formed and really nice, and they'll develop some really good like rail surfing and fundamentals. But I think an edge that maybe you guys had in certain aspects was that your main base is this diverse beach break setups, but 10 minutes on the freeway and you can go find those point break waves. And do you think that growing up in Aptos kind of helped with your competitive kind of prowess early on?
Yeah, I think it did. I think it was sometimes a plus and sometimes a negative, just because I was definitely an outsider when it came to surfing places like Steamer Lane or and those places had all the competitions locally. So on some of the local competitions, like I'd go out at the lane and be like, feel so lost. And that's probably how some of the point guys that are surfing these predictable waves, when they go and compete at a beach break, they're feeling lost too, because
Yeah.
you're not looking in at your lineups or whatever. So so there's pros and cons. Like it definitely helped me when I traveled and surfed a crappy wave in France or England or wherever it was on the QS. It was like, oh, this is kind of like Manresa, where I grew up. So, but yeah, like you said, then you're not far. I mean, that's the amazing thing about Santa Cruz is like you travel 20 minutes one way or the other, and you're gonna get into a totally different variety of surf.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And you were a pretty accomplished amateur surfer, and do you want to kind of discuss that transition from being like a amateur surfer into like a pro, and traveling to all these far-flung places and doing that grind, and how did that go for you in your experience?
yeah. So for all the, is it still the WQS?
Yeah, it's still the WQS.
Okay.
They just have different tiers to it. They have like the regional qualifying.
Okay.
And then if you place a certain amount there, you get into the Challenger Series.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And that's how they root out, the people who are going to go on to the next,
Right.
level, which is the World Surf League.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, things have changed, and I'm not a like a surf enthusiast right now. Like I don't really follow pro surfing that much and know too much about the all the different professional levels and things. But going back to kind of my quick career in it was it was the the WQS, and I decided to try and give the CT World, WCT a shot back then. And I had some sponsorship money from like Fox Racing and from O'Neill, and it got me to some events. But what I realized was that I didn't enjoy traveling halfway around the world to surf in 2-foot slop.
Yeah.
I'm much coming from Santa Cruz. We're pretty spoiled. And then you're getting out surfed by, a lot of people, and it was kind of discouraging,
Yeah.
because you know that, I could surf better than this, but then it's like, okay, the heat's running and it's like absolutely dog crap.
Yeah.
So I gave it a good run for maybe 3-4 years. And then I was just like, you know what? I feel so much more joy and excitement surfing big waves.
Yeah.
But what I took from the experience was just the people you meet, traveling, going at all these different spots. I feel like even from my competing all those years ago, I still have connections like all over the world, like in Australia or Japan, or, it's like, so you create some really good friendships. And I have just memories traveling with like 3 Australians that were an absolute riot. And just the places we went, and like just kind of the craziness that happened was pretty fun. So
Yeah. Well, those are the important things that we take with us to the grave, you know. So you gave it a good crack, and we actually went to Japan together. We were had a mutual sponsor, Schrodel Surfboards.
Yep.
By the way, probably hands down like some of the best surfboards I've ever ridden.
Yeah.
Always grabbed a new Doug Schrodel board, and it just felt magic pretty much every time. But we were in a cool situation because he distributed surfboards over there, and we got invited on like a pretty much all expenses paid trip to go and compete. And we did like a couple of like,
Shout out to you, Sumitomo.
yeah, Sumitomo-san, the whole Sumitomo clan, and they, fed us. They drove us around. We drove like the whole coast of Japan, going into surf shops, and that was an unbelievable experience. And I think, from my standpoint, like you were light years ahead of me in terms of like competitive surfing prowess and stuff, but I was just so like blown away and thrilled to be on this proper surf trip. And they don't know us from the milkman in Japan, but we would show up to these like demos, and we were like signing T-shirts and like
Yeah.
So that was a great experience. I think that's just an example of the it's all about the journey in that regard. And so yeah, I'm sure that you've got plenty other cool trips just like that. But I think more importantly, you mentioned the big wave fascination, and you're one of the the surfers after the generation with like Pete and Flea and all those guys to really give Mavericks a crack. And can you just tell me how that whole experience developed for you, that pursuit of big wave surfing?
Yeah. So where it started, I would say probably is just the desire to test your skills, test your both mental skills, how you deal with fear and danger, and then your physical preparation. And when I was younger, I like had a goal of surfing. Let's say it was Middle Peak, Steamer Lane, and so I kind of worked my way up. Some people are like, "Oh, how do you get into surfing Mavericks?" Well, I tell them it's a progression. It doesn't happen overnight. You work your way up. You surf a little bit bigger wave. You train. You get a little more confidence. You move here in town. It's kind of like, just going up the coast. It's like, all right, I learned to surf at Capitola. What's the next biggest wave? All right, I'm moving up to Sharks or the Hook. All right, I'm gonna move up to the Point. Oh, and then that wave out further up, Sewers. Oh, that looks gnarly. I'm gonna head out there. Then Middle Peak, and then it's like, okay, go up the coast. Then it's Scots or Horseshoes, and then and then finally at some point you got to make that jump into Mavs, and it's a whole nother level.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was very much a progression over the years getting to that point.
And this was like pre-flotation vests, or pretty much Wild West type scenario. What kind of training did you do in the off days to kind of prepare yourself for this?
Yeah. So yeah, no inflation vests. And the training that kind of we did was a lot of the training guys are still doing now, but underwater pool training, doing laps in the pool, um, paddling, surfing a lot. Um, I think that training has evolved so much now. Guys and gals are getting like super scientific with, and just their performance is getting more and more insane, But I think there was some training, but it wasn't as like so calculated and so measured and so scientific as it is today.
Yeah. And that's, the physical side, but then there's the whole mental aspect of it too. And, I think the first time I surfed Mavs, it was like, it's pretty big. I don't know how to measure the faces, but it was pretty big. And I remember I seen you went on a freaking gnarly one, and you ate shit like right in the bowl. And like I remember we were all kind of looking back at you, and like your board was like tombstoning, and one of the guys was just saying like, "Oh, Fox is paying his dues," and like at that point I was just like, "Holy shit! Like, is this what that means?" Like, almost dying. So how do you deal with that mentally of being down under the water? You don't know which way is up. You're getting rattled, and just the oxygen's getting just burnt up so quickly. What was like your go-to happy place in a situation like that?
Yeah. You do have to find a happy place. That's for sure. I mean, I think it varies from day to day. I I can't, off the top of my head, say what one specific happy place was,
Mm-hmm.
um, but yeah, you do really need to somehow take your mind off the fact that you're 30 feet down and it's dark and it's cold and you don't know which way's up and all those things that could induce panic in 99% of people, so you want to try and, yeah, focus on sitting in a beach, the warm wind and a pina colada in your hand, or,
Yeah.
everyone's different, what kind of calms them down, but you do want to try and find that. And then, and just really let the ocean, that wave kind of do what it wants with you. You can't fight it,
Right.
and then so that's another one, is having that patience to not try and swim up until it's released its grip.
Right. Yeah. And you were invited to the Mavericks contest a few times, is that right?
Yep.
How'd that experience go for you?
Um, Pretty good. I think I surfed it in the event 3 times. I was an alternate for a number of years and finally got in. The first year I got in, I made the semifinals. And then the next 2 years, I made the finals and got fourth place. And those were some amazing events. I'll never forget those. And then after that event, it didn't run for years, and then they turned it into a digital thing. So
Mm-hmm.
I was in the last event that ran, which is kind of crazy that there's not like a physical 1 day event there, which I kind of think there should. It'd be pretty awesome. But
Yeah. Yeah, that was always a pretty amazing experience to see all the surfers from around the world kind of put it all on the line up there. And yeah, I mean, and another thing, backside at Mavs, I guess it depends on how much you surf, like going backside, but what do you think the disadvantages to going backside would be, and if there's any advantages?
um, yeah, the I think for me growing up in Santa Cruz, you were going backside a lot. And a lot of the waves, you're dropping in, you're focusing on your heel rail. You're used to that kind of angle dropping in, and so it's kind of similar to Mavs, except it's, multiplied by however many. Another kind of positive maybe is, sometimes you don't see what's coming. So like you're dropping in and maybe you're not distracted by what's over there. Trying to find some more advantages. Yeah, maybe like grabbing a rail. You can have more control if you're dropping in backside and grab a rail, or even at the bottom, like grab a rail where you kind of, it's much harder to do that front side.
Yeah.
But yeah, you talk with a lot of people and, they would probably rather go front side.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it's probably, like you said, we're so used to doing it our whole lives going backside that it doesn't probably seem like the biggest drawback, but
Yeah.
it's something to be considered. And so, yeah, just what's your relationship like with big waves now? And how has that changed over the years?
Yeah, now it's kind of big waves. When I hear big waves, I think of mainly Mavericks.
Yeah.
That Mavericks has kind of been put on the back burner now. Last time I surfed it was, I think, at least a couple years ago. But prior to that, I had been surfing out there every year for like 20 years straight. So I really spent a good chunk, half my life, basically, dedicating to the wave. And I just kind of like, there was other things that were becoming maybe more important, and family and spending time with my wife and my dog and doing other things like backcountry snowboarding. And I just like kind of didn't want to be like, wanted more experiences in life, and Mavericks will always be there. And who knows, maybe I'll pull a Pete Mel and like come back at 50 or something.
Yeah.
Like, that guy's such an animal. But right now I'm totally content with it being there and me not, going up there right now. But, there's plenty of other waves that gets the heart pumping, that'll get a big tube or, so maybe it'll be back in my life in the next 5 years. We'll see.
Yeah, there's like a bit of self-preservation and reflection that kind of happens in that situation where you probably would ask the question, why am I doing this?
Right.
And when the consequences start kind of getting heavier and heavier as you go up the ladder, then it's only natural that you have these types of questions. And yeah, like you want to be feeling good to spend time with the people that you love. And it's just, surfing is, for better or worse, can be a very selfish endeavor. So
sure.
I'm sure that there was probably some, feelings like that influenced that decision. But yeah, you do have guys like Pete who are still going up there and like really sending it. And that's like really amazing. So, okay. Yeah. Big wave surfer, competitive surfer, didn't break through in the way that I feel like you had the potential to, but you gave it a shot. And then kind of going forward in your career, I'm going to talk about the magazine, but before that, like, what was there another kind of like time in your life where you're saying like, okay, well, this stuff's not really panning out. Like, what do I do, with my life?
Yeah. And you're referring to kind of at what stage in my life?
Well, yeah, I mean, like probably around the same time you decided that, competitive surfing and dedicating your whole life to surfing wasn't going to be, something that you're working on, but I'm sure, other considerations started to come into your purvey.
Yeah. So I remember getting dropped by a sponsor in my early 20s. And it was kind of like a shock and kind of out of nowhere. And I was so like just young and jaded, and I'm getting paid, and I'm not going to really think about the future. And then that was a wake up call that, and I got let go from this sponsor, like it was like a month before the contract renewed, or even less. It was
Wow.
like, so I had like no time to like really find much of anything, it just was, it was a shock. And so that was like, I was pretty pissed off, and I was like, God, how can, like, that just doesn't seem right that but that's what happens. As a professional surfer, you're just a billboard, you're this thing that companies just use to try and sell more of their product, and a lot of them are not thinking of you as like, okay, this is a person, that's part of our team. We have, and, hats off to some of the companies like Patagonia and some of these other companies out there that are treating their athletes, more like part of the family, and supporting things that, whether it's book writing, or whether it's, advocacy, and instead of just, hey, you're not a person, you're just a thing that we can throw some of our clothes on in hopes that we're gonna get more sales. So sorry, I went off on a tangent there, but so that time in my life was like a wake up call, and from there on out, I was like, I want to not put my destiny into someone else's hands, and I want to do something on my own, that if I fail, then it's my fault, and if I'm successful at it, then more power to me, like I did it. And so that's when I was like, okay, I'm doing my own thing. I'm going to start this website, and I'm going to promote it this way, and bring the community together through photography. And that's kind of like back when I started Santa Cruz Waves.
Yeah. And so that started out first as a website with basically, it was like a photo sharing
Yeah.
kind of service.
Yeah, it was photo. We put up galleries of different surf sessions, and I invested in a camera, and I went down there and I shot everybody in the lineup, not just the guys or gals that were ripping, like everybody, old, young, and gave them a card that said, "View your photo at Santa Cruz Waves." And people obviously, probably had never gotten a photo taken of them, so they're like, "Oh yeah, I'll go and check it out." And a lot of people went and they bought photos, and that's how we brought the traffic in. And then with the traffic, more images, adding more things, and finally it was just like, God, this is kind of a waste with all these beautiful images and things that are going into the black hole of the internet, so might as well try and take some of that and solidify it more into like a print magazine.
Yeah. And that was, I believe it was like 2014 when the magazine first was printed.
Yeah, good memory.
Yeah.
2014.
And so, yeah, as a writer, I was like thrilled when you asked me to come on board and help with the writing. And we had like a great relationship, I think, for the whole run of the mag, like 10 years.
Yeah.
How does it feel looking back on Santa Cruz Waves? Because you built something that grew into this, like, it had this identity, and people were just, so stoked on it. It didn't just focus on surfing. It was getting into a lot of other issues, conservation, art, and all these different aspects of, Santa Cruz culture. But what's your, like, just looking back on it, like, how do you feel about Santa Cruz Waves?
Yeah, I think it was, I'm proud of what we all accomplished with our whole team. I think we collectively put together something that was really special, and something that brought value to the community. And sometimes I get sad that had to kind of shut the mag down, but at all, it's almost like looking at a great dog, that dog's not going to live forever, so might as well just be like, all right, we had some, we had some good times with old Rex, and, and we just look back on it with fond memories instead of like, oh, it should have done this, or could have kept going, or why didn't you, try and sell out, or this and that. And like, it's like, you know what? It's just got to look at the positives there. And it was a chapter,
Yeah.
but, yeah. And, thank you. And thank the whole team like that made it so special, for all the photographers, the writers. It really was a team effort, and it was fun. Learned a lot.
Yeah.
Learned a tremendous amount.
And at what point, like, what were some of the issues that started to come up as far as like keeping the spirit and the kind of the vision that you had for the magazine going? Like,
Yeah, I mean, every year is different. It's got so many challenges printing. It's kind of crazy, the cost of it, sourcing the materials, things going on in the economy. Usually advertising when in a really bad economy or weird economy is kind of the thing that gets cut the first. Things like COVID
yeah.
hit, and that was like, okay, no one's gonna pick up a magazine. They distribute it, everything got shut down, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, and it's not just us. It's like, it's just print in general it's a tough gig in a digital world now. So
Yeah. Like, I found that the amount of times that I reach for my phone these days, and like I'm going to get that like little instant dopamine hit, and it's becoming more and more apparent that, there's a war for our attention that's happening. And unfortunately, like good old fashioned sit down with a magazine and, comb through the whole thing it's less appealing than just grabbing your phone for that, like that quick dose.
Yeah.
So, that's something that I'm sure is affecting print even more.
Yeah.
And so like, how do we adapt in this landscape? And how did you adapt after that kind of fell through? Like what did you do to keep your inspiration going for pursuing your passion?
yeah, that's a good question. I kind of was, for lack of better words, a little lost after I had to shut it down. And I thought something would kind of come to me a little quicker than it did. And it's kind of floating around, looking at different things. Worked for a 3D printing startup that was 3D printing surfboards for a little while. And then I tried a little bit of this, and then found my way into Sandbar Solar, doing the marketing over there, which has been fun. But yeah, it was kind of, I was a little lost, a little weird time.
And do you think that anything in your experience running the mag kind of was useful as you transitioned into these new endeavors? Like what do you do now with this new Sandbar solo or Sandbar gig?
Yeah. So with the gig I have now, I think the things that I can bring from Santa Cruz Waves, some of the learnings are the importance of connections and people. I'm able to reach out to connections through graphic design now that I had there, for editing, for video production work, knowing where to print a banner and a tent, all these connections I made through Santa Cruz Waves. And now it's like, oh yeah, I need this, I'll just call so-and-so. I'll just call, get this. And so just the importance of, in our community and this is what I think is great about Santa Cruz is that for the most part, I think we do really trying to support each other, local businesses and things. And I think that's more important than ever, to really do that. But yeah, connections is one. Learned about working with people. I think I've become a better leader, and I'm sure there's other things that I can't recall right now. But
Yeah, that's fine. So, and going forward, is this kind of like you're in this for the long haul? You're stoked on what you're doing.
yeah, for now, I'm stoked on what I'm doing. I'm learning a ton. So, all about marketing. I never got a degree in marketing, but I learned so much just through trial and error with Santa Cruz Waves. But I'm learning a lot more now and implementing some things into the marketing plan with Sandbar. And yeah, I think it's a great team. We went to the Christmas party the other day, and just everyone's solid. We all work together well. We put out a great product, so it's something I can really stand behind. So I'm stoked to be there.
Yeah. And what's the environment like with solar these days? Like, is that still something that is being like, I don't know, is it something that's easy to get people to sign up for? And is there a lot of enthusiasm for it?
Yeah, I think there is. I think now that people are looking at their PG&E bills and seeing their energy rates just continue on that uphill trajectory, I think there's more and more interest in solar. The technology is getting better. More and more people have had solar and are like, yeah, it's working great. I can charge this. I can run my whole house. Like, I have backup when there's storms. I think it's one of those things that people are just becoming more aware of it and more educated about solar in general. And with that education, we get more interest. And yeah, I think it's a technology that is here to stay, and hopefully it just keeps growing because we don't need oil rigs off our coast here in Monterey Bay, or it's just like it has its dirty sides. I'm not going to be like naive to that, but it's got a lot of positives, and we really just can't keep spewing carbon into the atmosphere, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, it's bad. And I think as a surfer, you can kind of, we're so in tune with nature, and this is our resource here. It's our playground, and just anything that is involved with cutting the impact of our human footprint on the world is a worthy endeavor. And so I'm sure that you can leverage some of your passion for just the environment and in that regard. So that's a pretty sweet avenue for you going forward. So stoked that that's going well. And you recently got married like 4 years ago or so.
Yeah.
How did you meet your wife, Paige? Right?
Yeah. So Paige was actually our office administrator at Santa Cruz Waves.
Oh,
A
nice.
number of years ago. So she was great. She grew up in Scotts Valley. I grew up in Aptos. So kind of never really met each other when we were younger. But yeah, met her through work. She went off to do something else, work for somebody else, moved to Hawaii for a little while, and I was doing something else. And then we kind of reconnected, and we're just like, God, we're just good friends. And it just, I think that's what you really look for, is someone that is just you like love to just hang out with them all the time. They're just like a best friend, and then the rest of it is a bonus.
Definitely. And what kind of things do you guys like to do? Does she surf?
She surfs. Yeah. Got her a Pearson Arrow a beautiful, we call it sangria color purple longboard. So she'll go out to privates or some of the other mellow spots. Love to hike, love to go on adventures, love to travel, and yeah, just try and eat good food.
Yeah. Do you guys have any like wish lists for travel? Do you have any places that you're like itching to go to?
Well, we were just watching this show on Netflix, and I think it's called like Wild Norway or something.
Oh,
So
cool.
Norway looks insane, just the fjords and the wildlife, and that's high up on the bucket list there.
Yeah, cold water.
Cold water, but
We've got the experience for that.
yeah,
Yeah, I was talking to Waggy. I saw him out at Windansea, and I'm like, "You're always going on these trips to like these cold places." And he's like, "I don't know." He's like, "I don't really like, you know, plan it that way. It just kind of like pops up." And I'm sure these brands or whoever's running these trips is like, "Oh, this guy's like comfortable in cold water. Let's
yeah.
let's send him up there." Have you ever been to any other like cold
Yeah.
surfing destinations? Because I'm always trying to get out of the cold here and
Yeah.
try to go to the tropics or something.
Yeah, coldest place I've ever surfed was Thurso, Scotland.
Oh wow.
And no joke, like you had to wear gloves or your fingers would just, you put them in, it's in an instant like pain, like 1,000 needles.
Yeah.
Yeah, that wave was, I'm guessing the water was high 40s,
Wow.
something like that.
Yeah, that's
So,
frigid.
so probably like 10 degrees colder than our normal sort of water temp here.
And something else that I think that's cool about you is that I noticed, especially too, you started working for this startup with the 3D printed boards, and you were writing some kind of like more alternative crafts. And I think for myself, you know, aging and gathering injuries and, you know, all these limitations, that having a little foam is a friend.
Yeah.
And where are you at with the kind of equipment that you like to use now? And
Yeah. So I'm as I age, I'm not that old, but I just been surfing a long time. So when you spend that many hours in the water on a board, inevitably it's going to get riding the same shortboard is going to get old. Riding this surfing at the same spot is going to get old. At least for me, it's going to get old. So I'm to keep the stoke, to keep the excitement, feeling like a grom. Like I try different boards, different shapes. I just got a 9.5. They call them like a longfish or a glider. You know, just big, long, a lot of volume. Two fins instead of, you know, a big center longboard fin. You know, and it's just a whole different feeling. The paddling of it, the glide. You know, I've got some other boards that are made out of wood that have a different flex pattern. So yeah, trying a bunch of different equipment keeps you excited, keeps it challenging. I think is important.
yeah, for sure. And speaking of challenging yourself, you know, I know that competing, you know, we can get burnt out on it at a young age, but now we've got these, you know, opportunities to kind of put a jersey on and catch some waves. I'm referring to the Board Riders Club here in Santa Cruz, and the Board Riders Club, you know, those were very popular in Australia for decades, and it was kind of like a local beach or a part of town. They could establish their own club, and it's brought this camaraderie, and they would have heats and events. And now they brought it to the States. You know, I'm probably thinking like 8 or so years ago. And have you had some good experiences putting on a jersey with the Board Riders Club?
Yeah, the board riders have been great. It really has brought our different generations together. You know, we'll all pile into a minivan and there'll be little groms, you know, doing what they do, watching their TikToks and eating candy, and, you know, and then the older generation. But everyone, once we get to these events and just the whole trip in general is really like this one big family. And so I think it's really good for the youth to kind of, have that time with maybe their heroes, or the mentorship that could come along with it. Hey, don't, you dropped your candy wrapper, like think about it more, like throw it in the trash can, or that stuff's gonna rot your teeth out. I don't know. You start like trying to kind of help the younger generation and try and steer them in a positive direction if you can.
Yeah, and speaking of that, growing up on Pleasure Point, it was a beautiful environment, but also there was some kind of, darker aspects about growing up in a place like that, where there's a lot of hazing and, there's a lot of dark paths to follow. And how did you navigate some of those kind of potential pitfalls of growing up in Santa Cruz, especially in our generation, where the guys above us were kind of living a pretty gnarly lifestyle? And so yeah, how did that happen? Or
It was, I think each generation could look back and say ours was, I feel like everything was harder 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And then 10 years before that, it was harder. And
Right.
10 years before that, it was harder. It was challenging, but I also, I feel fortunate that I had parents that were around that, and also that I was a little bit separated from a lot of that growing up in Aptos. We had our own bubbles of bad influence down there, but I just kept trying to stay active with my surfing as much as I could, and you are who you hang around with. So if you're hanging around people that are dabbling in whatever, some bad shit, like you're gonna inevitably like maybe get sucked into that. So I had some really good friends, and still do. A lot of us still friends with a lot of my childhood friends, and yeah, like we won't get into my sort of teen learning experiences, but yeah, I feel fortunate that I got through all that and didn't get sucked into drugs and whatever else, because it is easy to. It's so much of it out there.
Yeah.
And last thought there is that I will say that what I'm seeing with the younger generation, whatever it is like parents are doing something right, because they're like positive, they're like respectful in the water. Like I feel like we weren't that way.
No, yeah, it's different. It's such a different like climate, and seeing the kids being able to like surf and hang out and just be kids and not have that kind of, heavy hand kind of delivered to them. It can instill respect, in many good ways, but then it's not good. It's like it's trauma, and that's, growing up with that, it's never a great thing. And how many friends that we had that, kind of lost everything to that. So plenty of like warning signals like around. So I'm just really happy to see that has shifted. And who are some of the up and coming kids that are kind of, making you proud these days surfing and around town?
Yeah, I don't, well, let's see. Some of the younger kids, that I went to down south with, there's the girls, Cora, I think's her name, Cora, and then I my memory's going, but there's like a pack of young girls that are shredding, that are super respectful. Some of the kids a little younger than me that are maybe not super grums, but like Koa DePoit, James Daniels. All these kids they're actually almost out of the gromhood now. They're like adults, but yeah, a lot of the younger kids seem to be really respectful now, and good attitudes and stuff.
Yeah. And it's also kind of amazing to see like these people, like our contemporaries, our peers, going off and still able to like forge a path ahead and involve surfing in it. You know, you've got guys like Matt Myers who's doing the coaching, and you've got Sean Burns working with Save the Waves, and it seems like there are these paths in surfing to like to keep it going.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's something that people should be thinking about, like a
Yeah.
kid, if he's like a, you know, a hot up and coming surfer, like maybe what ways can I leverage this in the future? And so that's something that I see as a positive. And have you seen Matt working with any of his kids around town? It seems like he's got like a pretty cool program going
Yeah.
for mentoring these young guys.
Yeah, I don't see him too much around town, but I have spent some quality time with him on these. I roomed with him at our Trestles event, so it's good to catch up with him there. And he's like flying all over the world now, you know, with his coaching and stuff. So, but I do think the point you made about kind of there are opportunities that you can take as you kind of transition out of surfing, like coaching, like moving into the nonprofit world, you know, because you know the ocean and things. So I think that's great to remind our youth to just, hey, think about it, and here's some options. You know, you don't have to go into a 9 to 5 and be a whatever. You know, you can. There, you know, and I don't think people were thinking about that as much a decade ago or longer. It was just kind of like they surfing was going to last forever and there's nothing else out there, you know. But I see, like, I think Autumn Hayes is now a teacher.
Yeah.
You know, so she's like, and she won the Coldwater Classic, right? And so, and she's just like, yeah, like I really like teaching, and she's put a lot of effort into her schooling and stuff. So, you know, there's a lot of options out there.
Yeah, and I think there's probably like a little bit of a false sense of security because, you know, the guys coming up in the late 80s and early 90s is like this gravy train that they could ride and, you know, maybe not be like loaded, but they could, you know, buy a truck and pay their rent. And that kind of went on for like 15 plus years. And so, yeah, I think that there was a lot of, you know, moments like you were talking about with your competitive surfing where you're like, you know, what am I doing? Is like this feasible? And these days now it's like talking about the Groms, it's like there's no support for them to follow their dreams in that regard. But I also think it's almost like in a weird way a positive thing because it makes that reality sink in maybe a little quicker, you know, like, you know, if I'm not getting free stuff, like how am I going to transfer this into a career moving forward? So that's, I think, something that a lot of this generations like below us had to kind of learn the hard way. So I would probably, you know, venture to say that, you know, getting involved in like something like Santa Cruz Waves was a blessing, you know, for
Yeah.
you in that regard.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, no, it was a great distraction.
Yeah.
You know, I think, I don't know, I forgot the saying, idle minds or something like.
Idle hands are the devil's playthings.
There you go. That's it. Yes, you know, so keep busy, keep doing something. Will keep you out of some bad stuff.
Yeah. And Santa Cruz Waves, I think I've still seen them on like Instagram and stuff. They're doing some like, I think I saw a collaboration with like Adam Bartlett. Is that something that you're directly involved with these days? Like what's going on with that?
Yeah, I'm still running the social media and stuff. So it's nice that it is kind of turned into its own living organism that where way back when I started the brand, I was going out and getting all the photography all the time. And now it's kind of coming to me and I can kind of pick and choose, and a lot of great content that I just say, you know, accept and I'm a collaborator on, or sometimes I'll, you know, take some photos, sunset or whatever, do a video. But it is nice that a lot of the stuff is coming to me, and I can just reshare it.
And you built up like a pretty massive like social media kind of presence over the years. How did you get those numbers up so high? I mean, it was very impressive.
Thanks. Yeah, I think a lot of it's for one, good content that people want to see. And what I mean by that is like beautiful sunsets, sunrises. I think, let's see, also that weather things, related things that are like huge waves, stuff that it's hard to not pull your eyes away from. And the consistency, so you're just keep religiously, just like once a day or twice whatever, just as long as you're staying on it and just nonstop and being consistent with it, I think was hugely valuable. And then, collaborations, working with other people, like let's say you team up with a photographer and that photographer also shares the photo, right? Then that's going to benefit your growth. So I'd say quality, consistency, and collaboration, top three.
And did you have any like mentors to help you kind of through this, search engine optimization mastery? Because it feels like it's either something that just happens naturally, or maybe you have somebody showing you the ropes, because it gets pretty specific, like you're mentioning, like time of day that you post, content, current events maybe being involved and stuff like that. Is that something that just evolved naturally for you over time?
Some of it, I think I've always been a pretty creative person, so some of the creativity was always there, but I've always just tried to be a sponge and learn from people that have maybe done it before me, or what, like try and just ask questions, even people questions. What do you like to see? Listen to your community, listen to your followers. If everyone's like, those sunrise videos you're doing are incredible, keep doing them. It's pretty simple. Just listen to your customers, and so I think it's not like rocket science. It's some of it takes some nuance and it's definitely a learned skill, but a lot of it's pretty, listen to your customers, work hard, can keep the consistency going, and patience.
Yeah.
That's the last one. It's like stuff doesn't happen overnight. Everyone's expecting something to blow up overnight, and sometimes it does, but more often than not, things take time to turn into something.
And is this something that, you can leverage to like be like profitable, like social media? Like, how does that work? Like, is there a certain like amount of followers that you get that it becomes monetized, or like, how does that all work?
There's a lot of different ways that companies do it. Like influencers maybe have their own certain rates to post a product. Companies, media companies would maybe say, we've got this many thousands of followers and our rates are this much. There's so many different ways you can do it. And I'm still learning about that. I don't have all the answers, and I'm sure there's a lot that we could do more on the social media, but it's kind of at this juncture for me, I'm like a one-man show, and I have Sandbar is my primary gig, and it's not really something that's super important to me at this moment. But a lot of brands or in media and influencers are making good money.
Yeah.
For sure.
And just going forward, like we're both in our 40s now, and like you had an injury, I had both of my hips replaced, all this stuff going on with my body. And how does your like preparation, how has it changed, or at least what you do to upkeep your body and your mind as you age? Because you're a stellar athlete, and I'm sure performance still is important.
Yeah, I try. It's not. I'm not in my optimal shape right now, to be completely honest. But I am working on getting back there. But I think doing something active at least once a day. So I'm fortunate to have a nice trail right by my house. I can do a nice trail run with the dog. Try and get an evening surf in. I think the hot room, sweating, hot cold therapy is a really good one for overall health, and flexibility, stretching. And you're a yogi, so stretching, whether that's in a hot room, whether it's in a regular room, just kind of moving the body where it feels good, and doing less of what we're doing now, sitting.
Yeah,
Sitting's the worst.
I know it's the culprit of the low back
Yeah.
epidemic. But well, that's cool to hear that you're still taking all that very seriously. And what other things moving forward in your life do you want to branch out into? I mean, you've had this successful surfing career, you established yourself as a businessman, but going forward, like how else do you want to like leave your legacy?
Yeah, I think just I want to leave it being positive, a positive influence on people around me, on the community. I'm talking like I'm gonna pass away tomorrow. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah.
But you never know.
You
But
don't.
yeah, I think when we talk about legacy, it's just there's so much doom and gloom and bad things in this world, and it's hard not to get down. So the more I can help spread positivity through whether it's media or events or you know con whatever it is, the better. I think that's what I would strive for.
Yeah. And what kind of things do you do to offset some of that doom and gloom? Like, I like to read, I like to play the guitar. What kind of other things do you like to do to just, unplug and, just fill your cup?
Yeah, um, being in nature. It's got to be my like number one. Just when I get out, and it's nature that does not also have 1,000 people in it. Just nature, I mean, it's kind of hard with the ocean now because there's so many people. It's not like you're really experiencing nature as much anymore. You can drive and get alone, but I think that really centers me. And yeah, having a good hot yoga session is really pretty grounding as well. Spending time eating a good meal with my wife and dog, that's kind of grounding and pulls you back to the universe. So just the little things.
Yeah.
We don't have to do all that much to, I think, kind of find peace in this chaotic world. It's just about leaving the chaos at home. If you're going to go for a hike, don't bring your phone. It's just such a distraction. You're there to be immersed in nature and to not all of a sudden be wondering who's texting me or stopping to tie your shoe and then going, oh, it's just like it's such an addiction, especially when they're close to us. So I heard a little while back that like if your phone is within visible sight, when you're trying to talk with someone, when you're trying to read a book, doing anything, it's a distraction because it's right there.
Yeah.
So like it can't be. They're addictive little buggers.
Yeah, I know. And it's so strange too. I think I mentioned earlier that it was like, I think with Instagram, like I started on Instagram and like it was kind of this like this weird like narcissistic dopamine farming, like in a controlled way, where it's like I would post pictures, but I wouldn't like doom scroll. or like I wouldn't go on and like, look at everyone and comment on all their things. I was just like, maybe I just wanted that little gratification of my own little like feedback and stuff like that. And I noticed over time that it's just like, I would pick my phone up. And I think maybe the algorithms have changed to where the phone knows how to keep your attention in that war for attention better. And I found myself like kind of like, resorting to always looking at this and checking things, and
Yeah.
it just doesn't feel good inside. I'm just
No,
like, dude, I'm like, what am I doing? Like,
Yeah.
I like to watch, videos of like chihuahuas like doing tricks and
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it's like it just is, it doesn't feel good. And so I think that's, one thing that we're so blessed with the ocean is there might be a bunch of other people out there. They might be like, not very like good sharers or, people to spend your time with, but you can just get into that water. And once you get in there, it's just like
Oh, it's still,
nothing else matters,
Yeah,
And so what's that feeling like to have something such like, it's almost like an appendage, it's like our arm. It's like such a part of us being a surfer. And how special is that to you?
yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a huge part of my life. And I don't know what I would do without it. I remember in high school, my folks were thinking about, well, we were moving, but they were thinking about whether to move kind of like inland towards the mountains more, maybe the foothills or something, and away from the ocean. And I've never like had such a freak out in my life, I'm like, no, if we do this, I'm running away. Like I fully told them, like, I'm going to run away. I'm going to go back to the coast, and I'm going to,
Yeah.
and I'm like 16 years old, but I think they're like kind of believed me and were like, oh shit, like we probably shouldn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't screw this one up for this poor kid.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's everything to me. It's my happy place, it's taught me so much about life, and that's why I think, we really need to, as surfers or swimmers or ocean goers, man, if it's given us so much, it's the least we can do to really try and protect it. Keep it clean, keep our animals healthy, keep offshore drilling, out, keep cruise ships out. Like, man, like gives us so much. So.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you mentioned that, like the cruise ship thing. Just briefly talk about that and any other type of like activism that you've been involved with through your career.
Yeah, that was the cruise ship debate was went on for a number of years, and what was happening, we don't often see it here in Santa Cruz. We don't have a major, like a port where a cruise ship can park,
Right.
and where they can offload people. But down in Monterey, that's where they were coming in, these massive cruise ships and dropping anchor,
Yeah.
and then taking these shuttles and shuttling them out to Fisherman's Wharf and into Monterey. And I'd been researching more about the environmental hazards of cruise ships. That is a lot of times kind of pushed under the rug. What they do out at sea, like once you get past 3 miles out, they're just can dump all their sewage and everything.
Right.
It's wild. All the other trash, like the so-called recycling on it, like the list goes on. And the thought of having one of these ships that, the anchor could slip, the engines could go out, shit happens all the time on these boats. If that thing's carrying so much gas and oil, that could be a catastrophe for that whole area. I mean, you got the Monterey Bay Aquarium right there.
Yeah.
It's the most amazing place. You've got Barack Obama narrating a feature-length documentary, and it's shot in the Monterey Bay. It's a gem here. So to have these big floating, polluting cities coming into our bay, and like it just, the risk was too great. So we had to do something. And we started going to city council meetings, made a petition, paddling out and protesting when these cruise ships were coming in, with signs and a megaphone, and like just making our voice heard. And finally, the mayor, or it was somebody in Monterey, was like, okay, we are making a decision to not allow them to off all their passengers. So they couldn't legally, I think, stop the ship from coming in, but they could say, we're not going to provide any services for these little boats coming in and offloading passengers.
Yeah.
So as far as I know, that we through our advocacy and activism, we kind of stopped them from coming into the bay, which was hugely rewarding.
Yeah, that's wild. And also, I think recently there was this debate about fishing in the sanctuary, and a lot of guys got involved in that. And I know that you've been, passionate about like spearfishing and stuff like that. Were you involved in that debate at all?
I was not, a very little. Yeah, that was another very contentious one between kind of the environmental world and the fishing community. And I wasn't involved too much. So I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. And, I think that's one of the issues, the fishing, but are there any other issues like happening in Santa Cruz that, are on your radar as far as ways, community action? Are you involved with Save the Waves or any of those guys?
Yeah, I am there. I think the biggest action item that anyone listening or you or I can do now is really supporting these organizations that are standing up to offshore drilling. That's a big threat. And we shouldn't be complacent. Like, we could, if we just lay down, roll over, we could have big oil rigs all up and down our coast out here in the Monterey Bay, looking out there. Instead of seeing a beautiful horizon, that you've got these huge oil rigs that are leaking, that all of a sudden, like down in Ventura and Santa Barbara, you got tar getting on your board, leaking off these things. Huge, Santa Barbara had a huge oil spill, and all these threats, like, it could happen. So shit, man, go protest, write your name down on the petitions. Like, it's real. Let's keep offshore drilling away from our coast.
Yeah. Well, we've got such a rich history of surfing culture here. I mean, from everything else, from music to art, Santa Cruz is such a special place, and it's kind of formed the people who we are today. And, I think that, it takes an army, and, luckily we're in this Santa Cruz army. And I think, myself as a writer, and you as somebody who's involved with putting out this surf magazine, we all have like a great debt to this beautiful zone that produces such talented people. And so I think that's important to remember for anyone listening, especially, if you're here from Santa Cruz, just taking the time to reflect on, what a gift it is that we have at our fingertips here. And, it's been such a pleasure to, grow up surfing with you and looking up to your amazing surfing ability, and just as a friend and, as a boss with Santa Cruz Waves. I mean, my respect for you is, pretty much endless. And so, yeah, I'm so stoked that we had a chance to have you on here and chat.
Yeah,
and
it's great.
I think that, going forward, we'll have to have you on here again. We can get into some other topics, but, before we peel off here, is there any other things that you wanted to express or just get off your chest or anything?
No, nothing off my chest at the moment. Yeah, I just want to say thank you for having me. And, Go to Surfrider local chapter, sign up and see how you can stop offshore drilling. That's a big one right now, and yeah, go get in the ocean. Right, like
Yeah,
we said, that'll make you feel better.
definitely. Yeah, I think if every politician, was forced to, spend at least 3 days at the beach every week, maybe the world would be a better place, And in the meantime, I think, all we can do is just do our best to make our impact, however great it is, in our little local surroundings. And I think you've done a great job with that. And so just wanted to, thank you for coming on. And
Cheers. Yeah.
we'll have to have you on again soon, Tyler.
Cool. Right on.
Yeah, that
Thanks,
was
Neil.
amazing.
Appreciate it, my man.
Yeah, dude. All right. Well, this is a Split Peak Soup podcast. I'm your host, Neil Carney. We're part of the Santa Cruz Vibes podcast network. So be sure to check out all the other great platforms that we've got going on there. And yeah, we'll check you guys out next time. And thanks for watching. You.